Part 2, Finding a Home to Rent. Types of homes. In Alberta, you can rent many different types of homes. For example, you can rent a house, a basement suite in a home that has a kitchen, bathroom, and a living area, an apartment in a low-rise apartment building, an apartment in a high-rise apartment building, a condominium unit condo. A condo owner may rent it out to a tenant. A tenant renting a condominium must obey the RTA, the Condominium Property Act, and the condominium bylaws. A townhouse. This home is like a house that is attached to other houses. A townhouse is sometimes called a duplex, triplex, or fourplex. What to think about when renting. When you look for a home, you should think about many things. For example, what do you want to live near? Who do you want to live near? Family and friends, schools, public transport like bus or train, hospital, work, grocery store, shopping center, religious center like a temple, mosque, or church, daycare. How much rent can you pay? Some types of homes are less expensive than others. Some communities are less expensive than others. A landlord will usually require you to pay a security deposit right away. You will need money to pay the security deposit and the first month's rent. I do not have money to rent a home. What can I do? If your income is low, subsidized housing may be available to you. Subsidized housing is a government program that reduces your rent. Talk to Service Alberta Housing Services. They can let you know what subsidized housing options are available and what you need to apply for a subsidy. If you do not have income, contact your local Alberta Works and Alberta Support Center. They can give you more information on how to apply for employment and income support. See page 34 for contact information. Are the utilities included? Utilities are services that a home may need, for example, electricity or power, heat, water, gas, internet, phone, cable TV. Sometimes a landlord will include all of the utilities in the rent. Sometimes you will have to pay all of the utilities. Sometimes the landlord will pay for some utilities and you will pay for some utilities. Sometimes you will have to pay a one-time fee to set up each utility hookup fee. Is a parking stall included? Parking can be underground or above ground. Ask if it is covered or heated. A parking stall may be included in the rent. An extra monthly fee not available. Are pets allowed? Some landlords will allow you to have pets. Some landlords do not allow pets. If you have a pet, the landlord might charge a non-refundable pet fee. This means you won't get the fee back. Some landlords may charge you pet rent. Before renting, check your lease. For example, are there limits for having a pet? Is there a pet fee or pet rent? Is furniture included? Most homes do not include furniture. The rental ad will usually say that the home is unfurnished. Some homes are fully furnished, which means that all of the furniture is already in the home. Does the home have any security features? Some common types of security are keys or fobs for tenants, deadbolts on doors, an entrance buzzer for guests, alarms, bars in the windows, concierge or security desk. Where to find a place to rent? There are many ways to find somewhere to live. For example, look for rental ads in the classified section of a newspaper. Look for rental ads on the internet. Are you going to college or university? The school may have lists of homes to rent. Do you know the area where you want to live? You can walk around the neighborhood to look for homes with for rent signs. Ask friends and family for ideas. Check with community organizations. Viewing a home for rent. It takes time and effort to find a home to rent. Take the time to see the home before you rent it. Compare it to other homes. If you want to look at a home for rent, call or email the landlord to set up a time to see the home. If you do not like the home and you do not have to rent it, here are some tips for looking at the home for rent. It is best to call the landlord during the daytime. If you cannot reach the landlord, leave your telephone number. Write down the date and the time of when you will see the home. Before you look at the home, make a list of questions to ask the landlord. Asking questions can help you decide if you want to live there. It is always a good idea to look at the inside and outside of the home. Here are some questions that you can ask your landlord when viewing a home. Rent. How much is the rent? When is the rent due? How long do I have to rent the place for? What does rent cover? What utilities and other services are covered? Is parking covered by the rent? The lease. Is the lease periodic, month to month, or is it fixed? If the lease is fixed, how long is it? Landlords often have a 6-month fixed lease or 1-year fixed lease, but always ask, are there fees for ending a lease early? Rules for living there. Are pets allowed? Are children allowed? Are guests allowed? Can I paint and put up pictures or shelves? Is smoking allowed? When can I use the laundry room? Are there rules for noise? Are there rules for disturbing neighbors or the renters? When you look at the inside and outside of the home, here are some questions to consider. Do I want to live in the neighborhood? Do I feel safe? Is the inside and outside of the building clean? Is the inside and outside of the building in good repair? Is the building quiet? Do the fridge, stove, and other appliances work? Does the toilet flush? Does the toilet leak? Do the water taps work? Does water drain well from the sinks and the bathtub? Rental applications. A rental application is a form that your landlord may ask you to fill in. You should carefully read the application and to make sure that you understand it. If you do not understand it, ask someone to help you. The landlord can ask you for information when you apply, for example, names of the renters, number of people who will be living in the home, proof that you can pay the rent, for example, pay stubs or an income tax statement, references from previous landlords. Sometimes you must pay an application fee. Look for the fee on the form. Some application fees are non-refundable. That means the landlord can keep the money even if you decide not to rent the home. Sometimes the landlord does not have to rent to you. For example, you did not give the landlord proof that you can pay the rent. You have bad references. Did you know you do not need to give the landlord your social insurance number? The Alberta Human Rights Act is a law that protects people from discrimination. It helps protect renters. Under the Act, a landlord cannot refuse to rent to someone because of race, religion, marital status, source of income, family status, age, and other ground. For example, a landlord cannot refuse to rent to you if you do not have reference because you are new to Canada or new to renting. A landlord cannot ask you questions like, are you married or divorced, or what is your religion? You can call the Alberta Human Rights Commission's private phone line, Northern Office or Southern Office, for more information. Part 3, moving in. Lease. A lease is the written agreement or contract between you and the landlord. You should understand the lease before you sign it. Ask for help at a settlement agency if you do not understand things in the lease. The lease lists the promise of you and the landlord. For example, you agree to pay rent on the first day of each month. The landlord agrees to let you live in the home peacefully. You and the landlord must keep the promises in the lease and follow the RTA. For example, the landlord can evict you if you do not pay the rent on time. You can file a complaint if the landlord enters the home without your permission or proper 24-hour written notice. The landlord cannot change rules that protect a tenant under the law. For example, a lease cannot say that the landlord can raise the rent whenever he or she wants to. There are two types of lease, periodic and fixed term. Different laws apply to each type of lease. A periodic lease is often month to month. It may also be a week to week or year to year. A periodic lease continues until you or the landlord end it. A fixed term lease starts on a set date and ends on a set date. These dates are in the lease. Security deposit. In Alberta, most landlords will ask you to pay a security deposit or damage deposit before you move in. The security deposit is a one-time payment and cannot be more than 1 month's rent. For example, if your rent is $1,000 per month, your security deposit cannot be more than $1,000. After the landlord takes the security deposit, they must put it into a special bank account, trust account. Inspection report. An inspection report shows the physical condition of a home when you move in and out. The landlord must do an inspection within 1 week before or after you move in. You should do the inspection with the landlord. It is a good idea to take photos of the inspections. You can use the photos if there are any problems later on. After the inspection, the landlord must give you a written inspection report right away. You should keep a copy of the report. Paying rent. There are different ways to pay rent. You can pay rent by check, money order, cash, credit card, online transfer through online banking, direct withdrawal from your bank account. You should always have proof that you paid the rent. You can get a receipt from the landlord, get a copy of the rent check, print a copy of the online transfer, have a witness who sees you pay the rent. You must pay rent on time and in full. If you miss a rental payment, your landlord can evict you, can deduct money from your security deposit. Part 4, rules for landlords and tenants. Rules for landlords. When your landlord rents a home to you, the landlord must follow the law. Here are the rules that your landlord must follow. The landlord must make the home available for you on the move-in date on the lease. The landlord must not disturb your safety, security, and the quiet enjoyment of the home. For example, the landlord cannot enter your home without your permission or without giving you a 24-hour notice. The landlord must make sure that the home meets Alberta's minimum housing and health standards. For example, the landlord must keep the property free from pests like bedbugs. The landlord must give you a notice of landlord within 7 days of you moving in. The notice must include the landlord's name, mailing address, and a physical location. If you and the landlord signed a lease, then the landlord must give you a signed copy within 21 days. The landlord must follow the law to end a month-to-month lease. For example, the landlord must give you 3 months' notice if they want to move into the home and end your lease. The landlord must follow the law if they want to increase rent. For example, they cannot increase your rent until 365 days have passed since you first moved in or your last rent increase. What if my landlord does not follow the law? You may be able to ask the court or RTDRS for one of the following: end your lease, rent reduction, money from the landlord, financial damage, compensation for things that the landlord should have done. If your landlord breaks certain rules, they may also have to pay a fine. Rules for tenants. When you rent a home from a landlord, you must follow the law. Here are rules that you must follow. Pay the full amount of rent on time. Do not interfere with the rights of the landlord or with the rights of other tenants. For example, you cannot stop a landlord from entering your home if the landlord gives proper notice. You cannot have a loud party and keep other tenants awake. You and your guests cannot do anything illegal in the rental home or common areas. Do not endanger other tenants or the landlord. For example, you cannot attack or threaten to attack any other tenants or the landlord. If you do, then the landlord can give you a 24-hour eviction notice. Do not cause or permit significant damage to the home. The landlord can give you a 24-hour eviction notice if you do. Keep the home reasonably clean. Leave the home when the lease is over. If you do not leave, the landlord can remove you from the home with an order from the court or the RTDRS. What if I do not follow the law? Your landlord can evict you. You can read more about evictions on page 26. Apply to court or the RTDRS to end your lease. Apply to court or the RTDRS for possession of the property. Landlord can remove you from the property if you do not leave. Request money from you, financial damage. Part 5, living there. Notice of landlord. When you move in, the landlord has 7 days after you move in to give you a notice of landlord. The notice must say the landlord's contact information, the landlord's name, postal address, and a physical location. Tip: someone may act for the landlord, such as a property manager. Sometimes the landlord will deliver the notice to you, but they can post it on the door or in the common area of the building. If there is a new landlord later on, the new landlord must give you a new notice of landlord. Entry by the landlord. There are 2 ways for a landlord to enter your place, without or with notice. But a landlord must follow certain rules. Entry without notice. The landlord can enter a home without notice for these reasons. There is an emergency. For example, the landlord sees smoke coming from your door. The landlord thinks the home is on fire. You agree to the entry. For example, you call or email the landlord with a problem in your home. You ask the landlord to enter your home to check the problem. You have abandoned the home. For example, the landlord has not heard from you for several months. You haven't paid the rent. Entry with notice. The landlord can enter your home for these reasons with 24-hour written notice. Inspect the home, make repairs, control pests, show the home to interested buyers, show the home to other tenants at the end of your lease. The landlord must follow some rules to enter the home. The landlord must give you a notice of entry. The notice must say the reason for entry and the date and the time for entry. The landlord can enter the home from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. only. The notice must be for a certain date and not a range of dates. For example, it cannot say that the landlord will enter from Monday to Saturday. There are days when the landlord cannot enter the home. For example, the landlord cannot enter on a holiday or your day of worship. Tell your landlord in writing if your worship day is not Sunday. The landlord can give notice to you in person by registered mail or by certified mail. If these ways won't work, the landlord can give notice to another adult in the home or post the notice in plain sight at your home. If none of those ways work, the landlord can send the notice by fax or email. Make sure you have a printed copy of the notice. If the landlord gives proper notice, they can enter your home. You do not have to be there when the landlord enters, but it is a good idea to be there. Tip: if you think that the landlord didn't follow the rules for giving notice, you can make a complaint with Service Alberta.